Hi there. I'm so excited to welcome you to the Arthritis Life podcast, where we share arthritis life stories and tips for thriving with autoimmune arthritis. My name is Cheryl Crow, and I am passionate about helping people navigate real life with arthritis beyond joint pain. I've been living with rheumatoid arthritis for 20 years, and I'm also a mom, occupational therapist, video creator, support group leader, and I created the Room to Thrive self-management program. I am so excited to help you live a more empowered life with arthritis. We're going to cover everything from kitchen life hacks to navigating the healthcare system to coping with friends who just don't get it. Seriously, no topic is going to be off limits on this podcast. My interviewees and I share our honest stories of how chronic illness affects our lives. This includes discussions about mental health, sex, shame, pregnancy, body image, advocacy, self-acceptance, and so much more. You'll hear stories from all ends of the spectrum, from a person who's living in medicated remission from psoriatic arthritis to somebody living with severe mobility restrictions and severe pain from rheumatoid arthritis. You'll hear how people manage their conditions in different ways, like medications, mindfulness, movement, social support, work accommodations, and so much more. You'll also hear from rheumatology experts who just get it. We'll dive deep into the science behind chronic pain and what's the latest evidence for lifestyle changes that can help you thrive with arthritis, including exercise, sleep, nutrition, stress reduction, and more. This is your chance to sit down and chat with a friend who's been there. Ready to figure out how to manage your arthritis life? Let's get started. I'm so happy today to be joined by Ayesha Patrick. Ayesha, welcome to the Arthritis Life podcast.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. I'm so grateful and thankful and excited to be here. So thank you once again for having me.
I'm so excited. Yeah, we met each other in person in September at 2024 at the Health eVoices event, which was an amazing patient advocacy event in New Jersey. But just to give yourself a quick introduction, where do you live and what is your relationship to arthritis?
So I actually am Jersey born and bred. I live in New Jersey, so going to Health eVoices was pretty easy for me. But as far as like my having psoriatic arthritis rather, I was diagnosed in 2020. So I it's all fairly still very new for me, having gone through everything that I've experienced since my diagnosis.
Yeah, it's such a good point that it feels new to you. I mean, in many ways, it changes over time, right? So you're 4 years down the line, especially being diagnosed in 2020. I mean, that's a difficult time to be diagnosed. And we always, I always ask about people's diagnosis story, sometimes known as diagnosis saga. Did you have psoriasis before a psoriasis diagnosis before psoriatic arthritis, and what symptoms did you start having?
So I've had psoriasis nearly my entire life. I'm well into my 40s, so that tells you how long. But it was very mild. Really, when the weather changed, I would have issues or a lot of issues with my scalp, but pretty mild. And it really wasn't until at the top of the pandemic that I experienced my worst flare in life. And I wouldn't even call it a 360. It was a 180 because honestly, once I experienced that, like my life changed and hasn't been the same since. And that's when I also started experiencing the symptoms of psoriatic arthritis. I never really understood how they related because I had just began to really understand more about psoriasis and had no idea that I could develop psoriatic arthritis. So many of the symptoms that I would have would be just stiffness in my joints. I would wake up. It would be very difficult to even walk down the stairs. I would have to hold the sides of the wall to walk down the stairs. I would have swelling in my hands, swelling in my feet. And one of the things that I didn't even realize was a symptom was I had pitting in my nails. And I noticed it and I was like, oh, this is pretty weird. I don't know what's going on with my nails, and like they were discolored. So those were the symptoms, but really the stiffness, waking up in the morning, especially during times where it's colder up here in New Jersey, it would just be very difficult. And I ended up having to, go to the dermatologist and thereafter the rheumatologist and got full blood work done, all those things. And then it was determined based off of my symptoms and everything that I did, in fact, have psoriatic arthritis.
So yeah, you had previously, I'm assuming, been seen by the dermatologist to manage the psoriasis, and then that is kind of a unique feature of psoriatic arthritis versus like what I have, rheumatoid arthritis, where we just go directly from primary care to rheumatology, where you have to kind of be seen by both dermatology and rheumatology. But it sounds like the rheumatologist made the final definitive
Yes,
diagnosis. Yeah.
yes.
And was it hard to be taken seriously at the doctors, or did they,
Whew.
because we kind of have a lot of like a running, some doctors are amazing. And some people are like, I feel like I'm the only person on this podcast who said that I got diagnosed really quickly. So it's okay. Like, but I do want to bring awareness to how difficult it can be. So,
So I'm not sure if we even have full time to address
okay.
that, but I will do my best. So
Mhm.
in regard to my psoriasis, when I did have my major flare up, I had so many issues with my dermatologist at the time, really related to my scalp psoriasis at that time. And she had prescribed some medication that I was told I had to wash my hair every single day. And I'm a Black woman. And if you know anything about Black culture, we do not wash our hair every single day. And at that time, my daughter was at the appointment with me, and it just seemed like the dermatologist was very dismissive and was not understanding or had a lack of cultural competence when it came to that. And she told me, well, you just have to wash your hair at least every 3 days because it's, really, really bad. So I followed those instructions and the majority of my hair fell out. And that began my journey of trying to find another dermatologist. And luckily enough, through just getting, involved with different groups. I got heavily involved with different Facebook groups. I went there to try to get some advice on finding a dermatologist. And lucky enough, I was able to find a dermatologist that is amazing. And she is the one that referred me to a rheumatologist. And because I trusted her, I knew that whoever she would refer me to, I would feel comfortable with. So by the time I got to the rheumatologist, I actually felt quite comfortable. I felt quite heard. I felt understood. So, but leading up to that, it was very difficult to explain because unless you're experiencing these different issues. Um, sometimes when you're explaining, because you're not a doctor, you might be like, well, they're the doctor, they're right, but this is your body. You know your body, I've lived in my body over 40 years. I know when things go awry. So for me, by the time I did get to the rheumatologist, I'm happy to say that this woman is amazing and has heard me, and I've had no issues as far as expressing any concerns. But leading up to that, I definitely had some challenges for sure.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that you were treated that way. And it's just, so in like I was gonna say in the year 2024, but whatever the year was that you were told to wash your hair every day, it's like how with all this access to information, it was why am I still surprised when people, are not culturally competent? I'm sorry that you went through that, and that I mean it wasn't just like emotionally difficult to hear that, I'm imagining, but obviously physically painful that for your hair to fall out and you to have like so much psoriasis on your scalp. I'm like itching my scalp just thinking about this.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I think for me too, it became more than just being felt the feeling of being misunderstood. But the fact that my child was with me, who is also a young Black female, who is looking up to me as her example, it for me that was the catalyst that I needed to do more to educate and help and advocate for others just like me, because there's no reason that anyone should have to feel um, like they're not heard just because of the color of their skin or the texture of their hair. And honestly, it helped to catapult me into my current advocacy. So I needed that, honestly. I mean, it was unfortunate, but I needed that from her so that I could then do the work that I'm, destined to do, which is how we landed here.
Well, yeah, that's and you're making my job easy because that's a perfect segue. So, yeah, how did you, to put it probably simplistically, like turn this really negative experience into now a positive, in the sense of you're helping others maybe not experience what you had to or what you did?
So I was having a difficult time after that whole interaction and everything. Like I told you, I went to Facebook trying to find another dermatologist. But in general, I was just trying to find other women of color specifically who have psoriasis to give me tips like, what are you guys doing, for your scalp? What are you doing for your skin? Like, I need like some tips, some tricks, something because, you know, nothing's working. I'm having an issue with my current dermatologist. And at that time, I couldn't get the appointment with my current dermatologist for a while because this person is very well known and very high in demand because every person of color, the majority of us go there. I actually travel about 40, 45 minutes to get there. Um, so I wasn't getting like any feedback. I wasn't like connecting with anyone. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's no way that there's no other Black woman out there dealing with these issues. And literally, I was sitting at the park with my two of my really good friends, and literally in my head, I was like, I'm going to make a group. And I was like, if there's no group, I'm gonna make a group, and maybe people will find me, and maybe we can like help support each other because maybe there's people that just are not comfortable with sharing, but want to be a part of something and want help just like me. And literally, that is how Sisters with Psoriasis was birthed. And I literally started like as a Facebook group, and I have an Instagram page, and it just built on from there, and now has flourished into the Psoriasis Collective. But it started as Sisters with Psoriasis support group, literally trying to just get tips and tricks from others that look like me or just like a listening ear because you know with your friends and family as supportive as mine are, still it could be challenging to always go to the same people about like issues, so you kind of like want to give them a break and be able to go to others, and having people who have experienced the same things that you have, you feel a connection. So um, that's how my advocacy and my support group started. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that I got involved with the National Psoriasis Foundation, and they were amazing. Um, and the mentorship, the advocacy, everything that they provided me, the support, resources, even sending me free resources in the mail, different things I could try. They have a patient navigator center. That is what I relied on until I could get seen by my current dermatologist. And they gave me the tools that I needed in order to fully um, support the women who join my group.
That's so, I mean, I think first of all, you are filling such an important need, by providing this like how would I say face to face, but providing opportunity, I think for a lot of patients just want to talk to someone else who gets what they're going through and connect, whether that's because, we are both theoretically, but two people are, women of color, or I also was just talking to James, who's was a young male with, Caucasian male, and he felt kind of like there's always women online talking about their stories. Where's the men? Like, I just want to connect to someone else who kind of understands maybe the pressures I feel when dating and stuff like that. So I know I'm just preaching to the choir here, but it takes a lot of gumption and time and energy when you're already feeling, the fatigue from a systemic autoimmune disease like psoriatic arthritis. So I think I will put a shout out, so I give credit to you, and I'll put a shout out in the notes or a link to the National Psoriasis Association, because I think it's like the perfect combination is we need the real patient experience and that kind of personal connection. And then the professional organizations can fill in those gaps of maybe like providing these like kind of comprehensive, like evidence-based resources. I know the Arthritis Foundation and Creaky Joints do that too. And there's an Autoimmune Association. There's a lot of great resources out there. But yeah, a lot of times we need the personal touch. I think it's like win-win, just have both, But a lot of times people don't even know about these associations, or you have a disease called psoriatic arthritis, and then you go to the Arthritis Foundation, not even realizing there's a separate association. So part of it's just helping people connect those dots. Yeah, and I would love to know, actually, just I know you don't want to share any like people's individual details or anything, but what were some of the responses you got from the people who joined the initial, Sisters with Psoriasis group or the Psoriasis Collective? Like, what? I'm sure it's just amazing.
It's almost the same response every time we have someone new join. It's wow, thank you for creating this space where I can just like connect with someone, because there's a lot of women of color living out there that, first of all, may not even know that they have psoriasis. And then when they do either, get a formal diagnosis, they're like, well, what is that? It can be a scary thing if you don't understand. And then they might not have people in their lives to help support them. So each and every time someone new joins, it's exciting because we are extending, within our family of knowing like you have someone not only that looks like you, but has experienced similar things as you. And we're able to we can't give medical advice, obviously, but we're able to support you and share our unique experiences, and it can help you along your journey. So each time, and from the inception to now, it's the same. Just they are like immense gratitude from each person. Like, thank you so much. I'm so grateful that this space exists. I'm so happy that I can share how I feel. That's literally how it is every time we have someone new join.
Wow, that's so powerful. And I think you said, yes, it's not medical advice. And I think that what we experience is so much more than medical, right? Like, I mean, it's not knowing how to explain it to friends and family, or thinking about dating or navigating it on the job. It's just like life. Sometimes I say it's not medical advice, it's life advice, Being an occupational therapist, that makes it's a little confusing because we're kind of all about like life skills and functioning in daily life. And but anyway, point being, I think we can't like it. I don't know how people navigate these conditions without some sort of connection to others who've been there. I really don't. I think that there are people out there who just end up feeling just really, really isolated. Or maybe there's some people who don't get connected socially to others because they get on a medicine that works and their disease is controlled. Is your group, sorry, I feel I'm just rambling. It's okay. We were both
No,
talking
it's
earlier
okay.
before we recorded about fatigue, like in brain fog. I'm like, ever since the Healthy Voices event where I totally overdid it, knowing that I would pay the price later, just paying the price a little longer than I thought I would.
I'm also paying the price. We chatted about that a little bit before,
Yeah,
but
it's okay.
just moving, pushing through.
Yeah, it's all good. I try to be self-compassion, compassion for myself.
And grace.
Yes, yes. And that's another thing that's so great. It reminds me about having these, groups. Like I have my just Room to Thrive, groups and people, it's so much easier. People, this is another little theme I've seen is people say it's so much easier to be like to say a kind remark or encouraging word to someone else than yourself. When you realize when you're telling someone else it's going to be okay, or you're doing the best you can. No one's perfect. If they did something like, let's say that, oh my gosh, I made a stupid mistake, like I forgot my medicine and now I'm really feeling bad, or I didn't do the routine that I know helps me, and now I feel guilty. It's like, oh, the friends jump in, right, and say, we've been there too, but we sometimes lack that own compassion for ourselves. As you're nodding, so I'm like, am I on the right track? I'm only
Oh yes, definitely. I think for me, I'm always thinking about others before
yes,
myself, and like I
yes.
will run myself to the ground. So and really a lot of people didn't even understand or know that I was experiencing what I was experiencing between the psoriatic arthritis and the psoriasis. I'll never forget, I went out to lunch with one of my good girlfriends, and I had my arms out and I had it up, and she saw my hyperpigmentation, and she was like, what's going on? I was like, oh, I have psoriasis, and like it cleared up, but like I have like the hyperpigmentation. And she's like, I never like really noticed before. And I'm like, well, now I'm over 40, so I'm like, as I get older, I care less. But I never complain. I never, I do complain with myself or like my twin sister. I share different complaints, but as far as anyone else, or I'm always like trying putting others before me. So I definitely resonate with everything that you said.
Yeah, and I know you're a mom too, and that really can make it more complicated, right? Because there is this internal drive to put your child's needs, before yours, and that can be really hard.
It's it's very difficult. When I had my worst flare, um, and all of that happened with me going to the doctor, and my daughter was with me. When after that, when I had lost majority of my hair, I'll never forget this because this is also something that has shaped how I've moved forward. I was standing in the bathroom and I was like, you know, taking the scales out. And my daughter was standing in the doorway, and she was looking up at me, and she said to me, is that going to happen to me?
Oh, wow.
And I get very emotional about it in that moment because of who I am. I said to her, well, if it does happen to you, you see, I'm okay. I'm fine.
Hmm.
And, you'll be fine. And
Hmm.
she got ready. She went to school. And then I came home and I was like bawling.
Hmm.
And for me, like that again was a moment where I'm like, I have to not only like motivate and push myself, but I have these children who are looking to me for the answers because we're not raising children, we're raising adults. So we have to provide that blueprint for them for when they're going to face adversity and challenges and change. And that moment, like, I always mention that moment because it really pushed me. Because I'm saying to myself, years from now, when I'm no longer here, maybe my great, 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 great grandchildren will know of like their grandmother who persevered despite whatever challenge. And years later, maybe like a year ago, actually, my daughter, um, we were talking about everything, and I said, "Do you remember like when you said that to me? And like, do you remember how you felt? Like, why?" I was like, "Well," she said, "Yeah, of course I remember." And I said, "Well, what made you like ask me that?" And she was just like, "Really, I just remember you being in a lot of pain." And, I was like, wow, like just thinking about that too. And just wanting to protect, because I have two children, wanting to protect them both, but also like also teach them that whatever cards you're dealt with, you push forward and move through with life. So it's something like I cherish. Um, even like every moment I cherish, even the moment that I had with the dermatologist that didn't hear me, it's all a lesson. It's all with purpose. And even like, it's so crazy. Like, one of my first YouTube videos I did was like in 2020, and I talked about how I had did a vision board for 2020, and I was turning 40 in 2020, and like, oh my God, I'll say whoever you believe in, but I said, God,
Mhm.
please, show me vision, show me like what it is that you have for my life. And literally my life like flipped upside down. But it changed in a way that I would never go back. I would never go back because I've learned so much about myself. I learned more about my strength, and I learned how I can be the blueprint for my children. So I'm
Wow.
grateful for that.
That's extremely powerful. I really resonate with what you're saying about, you want the inclination, at least for me, when my child or a child I'm like working with or hanging out with because of my kids' friends, when they express fear about something, my instinct is always to want to reassure them and tell them it's going to be okay. And you can protect yourself if you just do the right things, nothing bad will ever happen to you. And we know that that's not true, right? Bad things happen to good people, good things happen to, it doesn't matter how good or bad you are, but just it's stuff happens and giving your child an age appropriate understanding that, it's not like everything's going to be okay, but that you can cope with whatever happens. That's just like that, what do they call it? Like resilience or
Yes.
grit. Yeah, and it really is powerful. And it's definitely not, I don't know, I don't think I would have come up with this worldview if I hadn't experienced so many health challenges, um, over the years. It's so hard to answer those questions, honestly. Like I think my son hasn't really understood that there is like a genetic, I don't think we've talked about it, like a inherited predisposition that he will have a little bit more likelihood of getting juvenile idiopathic arthritis because I have rheumatoid arthritis, but it's definitely something that at some point he's gonna probably ask about. And he asks about, yeah, what to do to make pain better. And it's like they want to fix it for you. They love you and they want to fix, they're like, okay, can I make it? Did I make it better? If I kiss it, did I make it better?
Right. Yep.
Oh, it's hard. And when they're little, you can just be like, if they're like 3, I'd be like, yes, you kiss it and it's better because I'm like, I don't know how else to explain things to a 3-year-old. But as they get older, it gets more of the gray areas.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this is what we mean when we say that it affects your whole life, not just your joints. Uh,
Absolutely.
like,
Everything is affected.
yeah. I want to give another a little time to focus on fatigue, not because that it's fun to talk about, but I like coming up next month, chronic Eileen Davidson, who was also at the Healthy Voices, she and I are giving a talk at the American College of Rheumatology about it's literally called "It's Not Just Joint Pain. How can providers address the systemic issues, better to address systemic issues of inflammatory arthritis?" So inflammatory arthritis is the autoimmune types like psoriatic arthritis, spondyloarthritis, and like ankylosing spondylitis and rheumatoid. And kind of depending on what resource you're looking at, sometimes things like lupus and Sjogren's that can have joint pain also are kind of lumped together. But point being, the biggest thing that we're focusing on that talk is, or biggest things we're focusing on are fatigue and mental health, effects, and there's the systemic symptoms like, eye dryness, lung and heart issues. What would you like to share with the audience or with the world, whoever's listening, about, how fatigue what does fatigue feel like to you, and how has it impacted your quality of life? If you have ever felt completely lost or utterly alone while trying to navigate real life with rheumatic disease, listen up. I am here for you. I created an educational program to help you go from overwhelmed to confident, supported, and connected in a matter of weeks. And it's called Room to Thrive. After earning a master's in occupational therapy and completing hundreds of hours of additional training, I created a step-by-step guide to help you truly thrive with rheumatic disease. This is the only program I know of that's designed to improve quality of life for people living with inflammatory, autoimmune forms of arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis, Sjogren's disease, and more. During the self-paced lessons, you'll learn how to manage pain and fatigue, cope with stress, navigate relationships, and continue doing the things that matter to you and bring you joy. The goal is really to help you improve your quality of life and learn how to thrive with your rheumatic disease right now, rather than waiting for a distant day when it might be cured or healed. I really created the down-to-earth, practical, heartfelt resource I wish I had had when I was first diagnosed at age 20. If you want even more in-depth support, you can join the 12-week Room to Thrive virtual support group, where you'll be surrounded by people who actually get what you're going through, people who will provide the encouragement, validation, and support that you deserve. Each group is expertly moderated, so you don't have to worry about the kind of misinformation that spreads like wildfire in the free-for-all social media groups. If you're on the fence, don't just take my word for it. Here's what Katie had to say in March 2023. I was lost and overwhelmed with my RA diagnosis. It felt overwhelming to know what to read, what to do, how to spend my energy trying to research on the internet. Room to Thrive did that for me. It's been like getting a crash course in my diagnosis along with a community who gets it. To see all the details, including the dates for the next support groups, go to the link in the show notes or bit.ly/thriveroom with a capital T and capital R. You can also just email me anytime at info@myarthritislife.net. And don't delay if you're interested, because each group is capped at 16 people or less in order to make a small, intimate group atmosphere. Thanks so much for your time, and I can't wait to get started with the next groups. And I can't wait for those of you who are interested in the self-paced option to go ahead and join that at any time. Bye-bye for now. Life.
Whew, wow. So fatigue is the only way that I've ever described it, which for half of our population is probably going to be difficult for them to understand. But the tiredness that I had during my pregnancies times 10 is like the tiredness that I have with fatigue. And to make it easier for others who might not understand what that feels like, it's debilitating. It's to the point where it actually bothers me a lot. Like I feel like I could deal with physical pain, but fatigue where I literally I can't move, I can't push myself. I have no drive because I literally am depleted. It's very difficult for me because I'm a person that I try to do it all, and it feels horrible. There's times where sometimes I really can't get up. Like I have to say no. I can't do things because I am exhausted. And it's regardless of how I self-talk or what have you, it doesn't matter. I can't move through, and I've had to like become okay with that sometimes. And I had to become okay with asking my kids for more help with certain things around the house and asking others, whether it's my sisters or friends, to help support me differently, because then I'm worse on myself when I can't like show up the way that I would like to. And then that really is what messes with my mental health. So for me, like it's all connected, but like the tiredness, the fatigue is it's almost painful because I it's like seeing, okay, if you're in a desert, right, and you see a mirage of like water, but you can't get to it. Like you can't get to it, but you see it there and you're thirsty and you can't get. That's like how the fatigue is like, I want to do things. I I see the things that I want in front of me, but I can't get there. And it's like it's can be devastating. It honestly really can be.
I feel like that is like the best metaphor I've heard for it because it really gets to that point of it's not just that what it feels like physically. Like I often say it feels like someone I will say out loud, someone turned the volume up on gravity. Like everything that I have to do is harder. Like I physically, like it's like this moving through mud. And also kind of feels like when you have the flu, for me, like I've had like actual tested and diagnosed influenza a couple of times despite getting my flu shot. So I can't even imagine how much worse it would be if I didn't get the flu shot. But just that exhaustion, profound exhaustion. But it also is that your analogy of the mirage touches on this kind of grief of the things that you is the disconnect between what you want to do and what your body is able to do is so frustrating.
Yeah.
Um, and that it's not like you can just, you know, I mean, you do have to end up adapting and changing expectations, but it doesn't stop the fact that you want to be able to do more and you wish you could do more. And it's like a desperation type, feeling. And I mean, I just, yeah, I appreciate your vivid, description of it. And to be honest, I've been kicking around this idea of exercise helping my fatigue, and that had been working for a while. And then just this last couple weeks, I'm like, either I'm still pushing myself to exercise, and because that was my little theory, that was in addition to getting your disease under control, which usually involves medications. Obviously talk to your doctor about that. Then think lifestyle things like avoiding your fatigue triggers can be really helpful. Like for me, sunlight and heat are huge triggers, and overexertion or underexertion are triggers. So if I'm not active, I will get more fatigue. So I've been doing strength training, and that's been really helping overall for the last year. But it's funny, the last couple of weeks, I'm like, uh-oh, I don't know if that theory is as simplistic. And that's part of the process of having rheumatoid arthritis is that you have a theory and it works for a while, and then you're going to have to adjust the theory, adjust the plan. Cause I'm like, man, this is persisting despite my attempts at strength training. And it's always hard to be like, well, um, I'm also exerting energy in order. So I'm like, do I scale back on the exercise? Anyway, all that was leading up to asking you, has there been anything that's helped your fatigue historically or?
Yeah, so I actually, at one point, because of my psoriatic arthritis, it was encouraged that I exercise and all of that good stuff, which I have done. And at one point, I was teaching group fitness classes. But as
Mhm.
as things progressed, I actually was a bit hard on my joints. So my rheumatologist recommended not doing as high intensity of like training that I was doing. So I've had to adjust. So I'm actually
Mhm.
now getting into strength training, but primarily I would do like a lot of stuff that was very difficult on my knees specifically. So I've had
Mhm.
to adjust, but it's been a challenge because since I've scaled back, and we were talking a little bit about this, but since I scaled back and I haven't been teaching my classes, I've put on some weight, which then makes it harder to go into like this whole mode of working out and everything. So I am like microtasking myself. Like even if it's just like one day each week, picking up the weights, doing something, because I don't want to get down on myself if I don't want to be an all or nothing. I want to be happy and okay with being able to just do it once a week, twice a week, whenever. But that's going to help me. So definitely doing workouts has helped with the fatigue because you do get that, the endorphin boost. So that has been helpful. Walking, things like that, being active.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's finding that sweet spot, like you said, and tweaking it over time and knowing that, yeah, one day maybe you can do more strength training, the next day you might have to scale back. But I love the idea of microtasking. One of the physical therapists I met at the American College of Rheumatology conference, she said that she calls them exercise snacks. Like,
Oh,
yeah, instead of thinking of like one giant trip to the gym, little snacks throughout the day, which I think from the fatigue perspective really works. Like, but it all is so complex, right? Like it's not just about the amount of minutes or the amount of weight. It's also like, for example, I could do 20 minutes at like a mild to moderate intensity on the exercise bike, and that won't fatigue me. But 10 minutes at a high intensity will fatigue me. So it's learning, like your body is almost like you're doing like little experiments on your body,
right.
and learning to be flexible and what's the word? Like okay, not okay, but tolerate when things don't go according to your hypothesis, right? Because I get really frustrated. I'm like a recovering control freak, I would say. I just want to like figure out the solution. It's like something my husband and I have in common because he's an engineer. And it's like we're very like, okay, figure out the solution, just do it.
Right.
Like it's just like chronic illness does not play by that rules, those rule
At
books.
all.
Yeah. So you have to be like, okay, so um we adapt, we cope, try our best, and if it doesn't work, just and it just deal we'll deal with it. And I was gonna just ask, looking at the time, oh my gosh, this has gone by so fast. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we get to the rapid fire questions, which are really, I should call them just like the conclusion questions because they're not that fast.
I think I just want to share, especially with other people of color in general, that it's important that we learn more about whatever autoimmune condition you might be experiencing. With psoriasis in general, it looks differently on our skin. And so, sometimes we're either misdiagnosed or undiagnosed. And what's important about that is a lot of people who have psoriasis will develop psoriatic arthritis, and the damage that is caused by psoriatic arthritis is irreversible. So if we, are not educated or know, about different resources or what have you, there's a window of time there that, we're missing out on what we need in order to address these issues before they become major problems for our lives. Especially, there's so many advancements, different medications, different things that can be done to help people out there. So I just think it's important for the community of color in general for us to, you know, have ourselves become educated about these things. This is why it's important for me, the work that I do, so that I can be not only just a voice, but a resource for the community so that you know, everyone is aware of these different opportunities and about different things that they can do to address these situations. So I think that's really what I would love to share. Like, just, get educated, ask different questions. If you notice something, you go to your doctor, bring a pen and pad. Write down your questions, like use your phone for voice notes if you're not certain about different things. But definitely educate yourself, and ask questions and learn more about whatever condition you're experiencing.
That's so important. And I just was pulling up, if you saw me looking down, it's just because I was pulling up this research study that just to give numbers to what you're talking about. So in 2022, the Journal of Rheumatology, which is like a major, peer-reviewed publication, had this article where they found it was called Representation of Skin of Color in Rheumatology Educational Resources. Of the thousands of images reviewed, this is from the results. The final scoring revealed 86% of images. Sorry, these are images that doctors use to learn about these conditions. So this is medical school. This is the reference guides that they use to practice medicine. 86% were light skin, 9% were dark skin, and 5% were indeterminate, which is, I think, between light and dark. I'm not really sure how they define that because I'm just looking at the abstract. But that is just even worse than I would have thought. Like in the year 2022, how are you supposed to diagnose something in people, black and brown skin if you've only ever seen a picture of it? Like like in my example, I am extremely pale, and in the textbooks it usually says for rheumatoid arthritis, pink, tender, swollen joints. For my skin, they are pink. For your skin, they probably don't look pink. Like what? So anyway, I'm ranting, but I'm just echoing the importance of what you're saying. Like so foundational, and it's taken a lot of patient advocacy to even bring this up, unfortunately. And luckily pressure within other, there are doctors who are aware of this issue and rheumatologists. So they did do a call, and this is where I need to find an updated resource. The Rheumatology Association, I know in the US, had like a call for images of rheumatic conditions in skin of color. Were you aware of that or
I believe I've heard of
maybe?
that because I'm actually a patient research partner
That's
on
awesome.
for a clinical trial. So I believe I have heard of that, but I know personally like that there are different things that are happening to make that change. There's a lot of work to be done, which is why
Hmm.
it's important that advocates are out there to share the message and amplify our efforts so that we
Hmm.
can get the support that we need in order to help those in our community. So,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I'll try to see if they're still accepting, because I this is just a vague memory again with brain fog, that they were actually asking patients to submit pictures, of it was called, like, I just remember the phrase was skin of color. That was this phrase that they used of different, rheumatic diseases. So that is so important to get that at the very foundation when the providers who have this power to diagnose and monitor your disease progression. um they have to have access to those images, otherwise they can't do their job.
Yeah.
And the patients are going to, like you said, they have this critical period to control the disease and avoid permanent joint damage. So the delays in diagnosis that are unnecessary hopefully can be fixed with slightly with
Yes,
this.
that's
Don't
the
get
hope.
too ambitious here. No, I'm just saying because
That's
there's
the
other
hope.
things that also make people, get gaslit and not believed at their appointments, sadly. But it's something very concrete and specific that people can do. So thank you for bringing awareness to that. And on the same kind of, I know what you were just talking about being your best advocate, doing your research is so important. I mean, that my next question is usually what are your best words of wisdom for newly diagnosed patients? That's like where my heart is. Yeah, I know yours too.
Well, my best words of wisdom are that how you feel is valid because oftentimes, again, because you might not have degrees or what have you, you might question because you rely on what you're being told, but you live with you 100% of the time, and you have to be your best advocate. So how you feel is valid and always, respectfully assert yourself if you have to question anything. So that's the advice I would give to newly diagnosed patients or
I,
wisdom.
I love that. I don't think that's been brought up in those same words. And I think it's very healing for me, even just to hear that phrase, how you feel is valid. Like I could say it to myself, but hearing and I'm not newly diagnosed, it's been 20 years, but still, you can't say that enough. You cannot say that enough. Um, do you totally on a different note? Do you have a favorite arthritis gadget or tool in your toolbox?
I don't have a specific gadget, but I would say that my yoga mat, because I stretch every morning, is like my favorite thing ever. And it has
Mhm.
the sun on it, so it kind of like starts my day. That's like, I get up and I start my day with stretching. So definitely my yoga mat. Love it.
I love that. That's perfect. Do you have a favorite book or movie or show that you've been watching recently or reading recently?
I am I don't I have a guilty pleasure show,
That's my favorite topic.
and it's The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
I have heard so many good things about this
Oh,
show.
if you don't have time to be like enthralled in anything, don't do it unless you have like a weekend, like a binge-worthy weekend. And it's so funny because the keynote from Healthy Voices, he's from Utah.
Uh-huh. I remember.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I was telling him, I was like, oh, I know you get this all the time, but do you know about the Secret Lives of Women? And he was like, oh my God, it's so good. And I said, oh, I don't feel bad now. But it's like, oh my, you can't stop watching it. So that is my guilty pleasure right now. I don't really watch a lot of TV. I like to read. But when I do have those moments where I'm exhausted and I just want to lay on the
Yeah.
couch, I'm watching The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives right now.
There is something about reality TV. My husband and I are watching The Traders right now, the
Mhm.
Traders show, which is like a reality TV competition. And it just we get sucked in, you
Yes,
just anyway, I've actually really tried to psychoanalyze. It's like, why do I end up caring about these people so much? The people I've never met in real life. And you realize it's just that humans care about each other. Like,
yes.
and in
It's
it's deep in our DNA, and we don't have any psychological like defenses for the fact that we're connecting parasocially with people who well are never going to meet in our real
right.
lives. But it's like, okay, that does make sense. Like, I care about other people.
Yep.
And maybe that's maybe my justification for why. Also, but you don't need to. How you feel is valid. What you watch on TV is valid, as long as it's not hurting
Yes,
anyone.
that's true.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite mantra or inspirational saying?
So pretty much on everything, I have Matthew 6:33. And it's something that it's a scripture that my mom would always instill in us. And what my mom has passed away, so it's been several years now, but it's something that I keep present in my life. And pretty much the scripture says, if you put God first in all things, everything else will be added unto you. So whether you believe in God, a higher power, whomever, just putting your spiritual self first, and then anything that you desire will come from that. So that I hold dear to that in
Yeah.
every aspect of my life.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I love just hearing what works for people. You know what I mean? And I know that resonates with a lot of people. The last one is, what does it mean to you to live a good life and thrive with psoriatic arthritis?
To live a good life and thrive is full acceptance. It's full acceptance that who you are is okay. It's full acceptance of just knowing that there's no mistakes in life. And despite how we feel, everything for me anyway is a lesson. Some
Mhm.
lessons are going to be harder than others, because if you're facing different challenges, the only way through is through. So moving forward, being your authentic self and just accepting whatever is laid before you, you'll be able to get past into the other side much more quickly than if you just stay stagnant in despair. And
Mhm.
when I tell you the future is so bright on the other side, I promise it's just a matter of getting there.
Sounds so sweet. I just gave you a heart in the
Oh,
system
thank
window.
you.
I love it. I love it though. I also like the only way through is through. It's like
Yeah,
I think sometimes the only way out is through, but it's actually like the only way through is through. Like you just have to go through it. Like there's no other way. There's no way around
literally,
it. Yeah,
literally.
literally. Um, I am going to put links to all of your different social media, um, handles in the show notes, but why don't we just share it with the audience? Where can people find you online?
Sure. So on Instagram and TikTok, you can find me at Sisters with Psoriasis, all
Mhm.
one word. On Facebook, the Psoriasis Collective. And if you want to join the private group, it is Black Women with Psoriasis. Or if you just want to go to my website and then on the right hand side, you'll be able to see all those good things. It's the psoriasiscollective.com. You'll be able to find all of my socials there.
I love it. And it's Soraya Sis with a capital S. So like
Yes,
sis. I
but like
love that.
sis,
I
sis.
love it. Yeah, it's so it's a clever title, which I just love it.
You.
I love it. Thank you so much. This has been really just, heartfelt and very, very moving. I know people listening are going to be feeling like very, inspired and supported, especially other, Black women or people of color. So I just really appreciate it. And I hope everyone follows you and supports all of your projects. And I'll see you online. Bye bye for now.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Arthritis Life podcast. This episode is brought to you by Room to Thrive, an educational program I created from scratch to help you go from overwhelmed to confident, supported, and connected in a matter of weeks. You can go through the pre-recorded course on your own, or you can take the course along with a support group. Learn more at the link in my show notes, or you can always go to www.myarthritislife.net. And if you like this podcast, I would be so honored if you took the time to rate and review it. I also encourage you to share it with anyone you know who might benefit from it. I also wanted to remind you that you can find full transcripts, videos, and detailed show notes with hyperlinks for each episode on my website, www.myarthritislife.net. If you have any ideas for future episodes, or if you want to share your story or wisdom on the podcast, just shoot me an email at info@myarthritislife.net. I can't wait to hear from you.